Well, it's me. Who'd you expect? Santa Claus? Sure as hell ain't Santa Claus. I'm more the Grinch than Santa Claus. You know that. They named the show after me, for crying out loud. On this day in 1982, I didn't ask them to name the show after me, by the way. Some really intelligent, creative marketing people said, we've got this idea. We're gonna create a talk show. We're going to call it the Mike Farwell Show. Now, who are we going to get to host it? Here's the idea. Now we need the host, you see. On this day in 1982, Men at Work began a 15-week run at number one on the U.S. album chart with their debut album called Business as Usual. And the first single from that album, Business as Usual, back in 1982, was the song you just heard. Who can it be now? The song we choose to start our show on this Wednesday morning, the 13th of November. Business as Usual, the album from Men at Work, went on to sell over 5 million copies in the U.S. You know, that's not a bad thing to have on your resume, you think? Our album was number one for 15 weeks, and we sold 5 million copies of it. Not bad at all to slap on one's resume. You know what else would be nice to slap on your resume? And I'd like to thank my buddy Clive for informing me this morning. Look, I was busy doing really important things. At least that's the story I tell myself and I tell my boss. However, as I was doing those quote-unquote really important things, I did receive a message from my buddy Clive, who informed me before I had learned myself that once again, neither he nor I had been named the sexiest man alive. I mean, we tried. I even sent in my own application this year. That's the way you're supposed to do it, right? You go to the people at People Magazine and you lie on your resume. You pad your resume. I said I had a 15-week run at number one on the album charts, you know. And I sold 5 million copies of a magazine with me on the cover. No, I didn't. Anyway, John Krasinski, the former nerdy office worker from The Office, is now the sexiest man. There is hope. Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Like, I'm not even the sexiest man in my own house, and I'm the only man in the house. This is where I'm at. Perhaps it's because I'm thinking about this. I'm putting it all together right now. Perhaps it's because of my butter tart habit. Like, is it possible I could be the sexiest man eating a butter tart? No, probably not, because George Clooney has probably eaten a butter tart or two in his life. He just doesn't look like it. But we went out for dinner last night with friends. Haven't been to the Bauer Kitchen in a very long time. Glad we went and enjoyed it. It was a terrific evening. And my buddy Ian at the end of the meal twisted all the right arms and managed to secure for each of us, because Ian shares a love of all things sweet with me. So after we had crushed our desserts last night, had some nice creme brulee after dinner, right? End up with a couple of butter tarts to take home. And I said to him, this is perfect. Tomorrow morning with my coffee. Let me tell you. So to Natika, who made the butter tart happen, thank you very much for that. You were very gracious in your hospitality last night at the Bauer Kitchen. We thoroughly enjoyed our time. And I sent my buddy Ian a message this morning. Hey, I told you, like, that butter tart was good. I told you I was going to have it with my coffee. He says, I can't believe you ate it already. I'm like, what kind of amateur leaves their butter tart till after 9 o'clock, right? So I present to you this morning the sugar high edition of the Mike Farwell Show. Not the sexiest man alive show, just the Mike Farwell Show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9.
All right, let's get to that Farwell Show 5 for this Wednesday morning. Number one, the trial for 5 players, that is, on the World Junior Hockey Team, Canada's entry in 2018, charged with sexual assault, will begin on April the 22nd, 2025. That from a judge's ruling yesterday. The Superior Court jury trial is set for London, Ontario, and is expected to take 8 weeks immediately following the selection of the jury. Number 2, cleanup has begun at the former shantytown encampment in Cambridge. People living at the site on Dundas Street North were given 2 weeks' notice to clear out. Yesterday, heavy equipment arrived and garbage bins lined the property. Cleanup is expected to continue today. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 and connected to Cambridge in Toronto. Tents belonging to unhoused people near the Rogers Centre are being removed in preparation for Taylor Swift's Eras tour. The city says the 2 people living in the area are being directed into the shelter system in order to help ensure their safety. One resident says she's being moved to a hotel that the city is paying for. The first of Swift's 6 sold-out concerts is tomorrow. And I guess Taylor Swift can't see unhoused people when she comes to the city. Number 4 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, Labour Minister Steve McKinnon says the federal government currently has no plans to intervene in negotiations after the union representing Canada Post workers issued a 72-hour strike notice on Tuesday morning. Canada Post workers have a slate of demands, including wage increases in line with inflation, improved staffing provisions, increased paid medical days, paid meals and rest periods, and improved rights for temporary employees. The union says it's undecided whether job actions will take place immediately, though they will legally be in position to strike as of Friday. And number 5, on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, an Ottawa high school principal has apologized for playing an Arabic song about peace during a Remembrance Day ceremony after facing swift backlash from critics calling it inappropriate and hurtful to members of the Jewish community. In a letter issued yesterday, the school's principal said the intention, quote, was to foster a message of peace and remembrance, reflecting on the importance of unity and reconciliation, end quote. But that he has since become aware the song caused significant distress to some members of the school community. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Wednesday morning, reflecting on number 5 in that list. I saw a fellow talk show host yesterday point out that anyone who is triggered and or offended by a song sung in Arabic is really being too sensitive. I thought, well, I don't know that that's exactly the case when it comes to this particular song being used at a Remembrance Day ceremony, because when you dig beneath the surface of the song, and yes, it can be understood to be about peace, but you also realize that it's a protest song. It's very much used in an anti-Israel fashion. So I don't know that it's the fact that the song is sung in Arabic that's the problem. I think what becomes the problem is there is an entire part of the school community that does end up being hurt by that. And I think that's kind of where we're at with things these days, isn't it? There's a name on a building or a street or in a park I don't like. There's a statue that triggers me. I think, but that's just from where I'm sitting, that this is a similar occurrence. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. Every day, the moment we sign on to the program, Devin Robertson, the guy on the other side of the glass, pushes a little button. It unlocks the phone lines and opens up a world of possibilities, because those phone lines are open to you, and you can call the show and let us know what you think about things. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. We'll go to the phones now. Say good morning to Kevin. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, good morning, Mike. Well, with regarding, the sexiest man alive, you know what? I know you may not be in that list. However, who gives a heck? You are the most loved person in the region.
That's a load of hooey. You are so full of baloney. What is the matter with you today? Did you get dropped on your head?
No.
Oh, my goodness. Kevin, I walk down the street and people scowl at me.
No, man. You do a great job,
Okay, listen, I can't, I appreciate it. I really do. I wasn't fishing for compliments. I was just a little bit on my sugar high this morning.
Yeah, no, you deserve it, man. You deserve it.
Okay, now shut up, okay? Okay, go away now. I got to hang up on Kevin. I can't take any more. I had my sweets already today, okay? They were delicious. Mike is on the phone with us. Good morning, Mike.
Hey, Mike, I want to talk about how we make you the most sexiest man alive.
Come on, Mike, come on. I was counting on something like a little more bitter from you today.
No.
Okay. What's on your mind? Are you in the Bruce right now? Are you up in Kincardine?
No, I'm actually down in Toronto today.
Oh.
So I thought I would ask. I got to tell you how I did it.
How you got to Toronto?
Yeah, no,
Oh.
how I got to Toronto. How you can become the sexiest man alive.
Okay, let's go for it.
So the first thing is you need to go on the Mediterranean diet.
Okay.
I lost 26 kilograms on the Mediterranean diet. That will get rid of a lot of the issues with nutrition and stuff like that.
That's like 55 pounds.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. I'm just doing the conversion for people that are on metric or the imperial.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you eat a lot of fish, you eat a lot of chicken, you eat a lot of olive oil, and the pounds shed off you.
Okay.
So that's number one.
So that Bauer Kitchen burger I had last night doesn't work, eh?
No,
Okay.
that's not good. You're only allowed one beef meal a week with this thing.
What about the creme brulee I had for dessert?
Oh, no.
Well, I'm screwed, Mike.
No, you can only have one sweet a week on this thing.
Okay,
So
well,
one
I've had
sweet
two
dinner,
sweets
one
and
sweet-
two
Yeah,
sweet creme brulee
that
after
was
dinner
it.
and a butter tart this morning. I'm screwed.
So then that will shed some pounds off of you.
Okay.
Now, for butter tarts, I think we better have a segment on where to get the best butter tarts in Kitchener-Waterloo or up in Bruce County.
Okay.
My go-to place when I go to get a butter tart up there is Armstrong's Bakery in Lucknow, Ontario. They have raisin butter tarts. They have
Hey,
bacon.
no raisins, Michael.
They have walnut, and they have pecan butter tarts and plain butter tarts. They're really good.
Okay.
So that's a diet buster there.
It is. Now, okay, continue. I'm sorry. I keep interrupting you.
So you're only allowed one of those a week there, Michael.
Okay.
So then if you go on that diet, you'll get really slim and trim there, and then you'll become the world's sexiest man.
But what if I can't? What if I can't grow a beard like John Krasinski? That's a good beard he's got.
Well, I can't have that. Maybe hormone therapy will help. I don't know.
All right.
See you later.
Wait. One more thing, real quick.
Yeah.
Okay. You said the bakery is Armstrong's in Lucknow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I hate to do this to you because you're from up there, but it's not Lucknow. It's Lucknow.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, that's fine. Good enough.
And they say drive canny in Lucknow.
They say what?
Drive canny. They got this Irish sign up there. Drive canny. That means drive carefully.
I gotcha. All right. Well, you drive canny in Toronto today.
Okay, we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mike. Bye-bye. Toronto. So here's how you know that it's Lucknow. And I have this on good authority because I have a good group of friends who hail from the Bruce. Fine people from the Bruce. From and still there. I love going to the Bruce. Gray, meh. Anyway, that's a joke because if you know the Bruce, you know that Bruce and Grey County don't all. It's like Hatfield and McCoy, right? Anyway, those games back in the day between Hanover and Mildmay, look out, let me tell you. Anyway, in the Bruce, you know it's Lucknow because there's this saying to help you remember. Now, I can't say the exact words on the radio, but I'll let you just fill in the bleep, okay? It's bleep no, it's Lucknow. So it's not bleep now, it's Lucknow. It's bleep no, it's Lucknow. And that's how you remember how to pronounce the name of the town in Bruce County, okay? Lucknow. Bleep no, it's Lucknow. On the issue of the best butter tarts, isn't it interesting how anytime, like we are passionate about our butter tarts, and I thoroughly did enjoy the one that my buddy Ian managed to secure for each of us. He got one, I got one from the Bauer Kitchen last night. My buddy Willie sends me an email, although I'm not sure that we're buddies because apparently he wasn't sure if I had ever tried. He asked if I'd ever tried a butter tart from the general store in Bellwood Lake. Heck yeah. I mean, if there's a place to get a butter tart, I have probably eaten it, more than one of it. And you know what? Like a hard number 2A maybe for me. The sweet and savory, Just Love Pie in Waterloo is my go-to number one with a bullet favorite. General store in Bellwood Lake, absolutely another good one. I think Dee's still has a small part of an operation. I haven't been out for a while on 97, almost in Puslinch. But boy, oh boy, that's a keeper as well. And it's hard to go wrong with Snickle Fritz locally, who uses all kinds of locally sourced goods in her butter tarts. How much time do I got? Do I have more time to talk? Okay, I'll go to commercial like I'm supposed to. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. So just a quick reminder that we have a trio of Pauls on this program. There's the Paul that you most often hear on the phone, Paul from Preston. Then there's the professor, Paul the professor, who called yesterday twice because when he first was on, somebody thought that's not the usual Paul. So Paul from Preston, the professor, and then emailing Paul. And emailing Paul, I think, is this really an apology? He says, sorry you came up short for sexiest man alive, via email to mike@570news.com. Thanks, emailing Paul, for reminding me yet another reason why I did not get named sexiest man alive. Shortest? Sexy? No, forget it. How tall is John Krasinski, though? Just out of curiosity. Probably like 6'2" or something like that, right? Some manly stature instead of 5'2", like the little elf that sits here and does the show 4 hours every day. All right, time to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. Then some interesting research that I stumbled across literally from Brock University, but I thought it's worth a conversation on the show because this research finds that incidents of rude behavior on the part of students have increased since the pandemic. Are we surprised by this? We'll talk about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. I came across this research from Brock University yesterday under the headline, Rude Behavior Spiked in Ontario Classrooms After COVID-19. And I thought this is absolutely worth a conversation. And so we welcome to the show Dr. Natalie Spatafora, professor in the Department of Child and Youth Studies at Brock University. Natalie, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a busy week.
I have no doubt that it has when you come out with interesting research like this that certainly catches some attention. What led you to even conduct this survey in the first place?
Yeah, so classroom incivility in adolescence has been an area of research for myself and my team and people I've worked with for quite some time now. My dissertation was focused on it. So then in light of, after the COVID-19 shutdowns, there was tons of research coming out on what are we seeing in academic achievement and social skills and all these things being on the lower side after coming back to school. So I kind of thought, well, what about classroom incivility? Let's run a study and specifically kind of ask teachers what they see with regards specifically to classroom incivility, the slow level antisocial behavior, and a lot of the behaviors that we had already kind of been looking at.
So what did we learn?
So kind of two things. So the first part of the study, we wanted to ask teachers, right? So the first thing I wanted to do is teachers are our best informants as to what's going on in the classroom. And so we kind of asked them, what are these behaviors more of a problem now compared to, past cohorts that you've had in your past experiences? And they were pretty overwhelmingly consistent that it was, a few years of not really being in the classroom setting, not having to behave in certain ways, or, there's expectations that we have in the classroom. There's always ways we act in the classroom and how we act at work. There's different expectations than at home, and that they kind of had to start from ground zero in teaching a lot of those things. The other thing we found with our adolescent data, we actually had self-reported adolescent data from 2019 that we collected already, and we collected again in 2022. And we statistically were able to compare that self-reported data, and we did find significant increases, which was interesting because we compared other variables like bullying and emotional problems and friendships and other things you might think might have been impacted and didn't find significant differences there. So kind of just drawing our attention a lot to these low-level antisocial behaviors.
It's interesting that you don't find, these similarities in other areas. So it seems to be something specific to the classroom environment?
Yeah, and I think, that's not to say over those 3 years nothing changed with bullying and friendships. There's lots of other studies that have shown that there were different changes, but maybe it went down and then went back up, and then, it was kind of even over time, whereas these low-level, like classroom behaviors, I think what kind of happened, and what was kind of nice about the teacher data is we got those qualitative answers, so those open-ended where it wasn't just the numbers, they could also explain stuff to us, and they talked about lower, like less social skills, less self-regulation, increased individualism. There's lots of really good quotes from the teachers in the overall paper kind of saying these things, just kind of paints an overall picture for us. So we were able to get kind of at some of the why, or why the teachers think anyways, through that data.
And what does the why look like, Natalie? I'm very curious about that.
So what the teachers talked about just seemed like an overall, I guess, lack of practice or lack of exposure, I guess. Like, it's not really anybody's fault as far as those specific behaviors go. The quote I keep using as a teacher at the beginning of all this said to me, "It feels like kids have forgotten to be in school." And in the case of the youngest learners, maybe like we're never even in school, right? Maybe, if a student was in grade 1 and 2 online learning, they got to grade 3 and they never really had that exposure to the regular classroom environment. There's a quote from one teacher talking about, when they did the Zoom class, let's say they were on class in Zoom, it's different, right? There aren't the same expectations or consequences. If you're on using Zoom, you could talk, you could dance around, you could go and get a drink in the other room and leave in the middle of a lesson. And you don't typically do that in a regular classroom, but you could do that. So just that kind of lack of practice and feeling like they kind of have to start. So for students in grade 3 now, they kind of start with teaching things and classroom expectations that you typically maybe would do earlier on. So the teachers, that's what they talked about a lot. It's like lack of practice and having to get back to kind of our regular routines.
So now that we've learned what we've learned from your research, what can we do with it?
So I think, I keep getting asked, what do you think is going on now? I'm interested to find out and talk to teachers and find out, I think they would still say we have heightened incivility, but hopefully not to that spike that we saw in that 2021-2022 school year, right? Because we've had a few years back to, I guess, quote-unquote, regular learning in classrooms. I think the biggest take-home message, there's lots of small take-home messages here, but what I keep saying to people is we need this idea of fostering civility. So civility, when you hear it, seems like this outdated term, something my grandmother would say. But at a really basic level, I think that's a take-home message. It's not about necessarily the individual behaviors here and there, but just overall in our society, right? We all want civil people around us. We want to have civil interactions with the person at Walmart we're talking to or in the workplace, right? We don't want uncivil adults, really simply put. So fostering civility at a young age. So we have civil children, civil adolescents, and then these are going to be hopefully the civil adults that we'll interact with in our society. So even though individually a lot of these actions don't seem like that big a deal, we know that cumulatively they are, and really emphasizing that because of maybe the long-term or broader societal implications. Might
there be a message here for curriculum even to guide curriculum, to add elements of it so that we can foster this civility in younger students?
I definitely think so. Practically, we know that it's tricky, right? It's easy to sit here and say, we need to do more of this. But, any teacher will tell you it's hard, right? You're balancing a classroom, there's curriculum to get through. In one of our previous studies where we interviewed teachers, they talk about if I stopped the class every time there was a small incident of uncivil behavior, I would never get through a lesson, right? This quote from the teacher, I always remember that they said that to me. And totally, I've been in classrooms. I know that's the case. But so kind of still spending that time, if it was part of learning or adding these kind of social skills, or we acknowledge that it takes time, right? We always talk about even really young kids. If you're teaching a 3-year-old manners, say please and thank you, it takes work. It's effort, right? It's more work to teach them to say please and thank you than it is to not. So we acknowledge that there's cost and it takes effort to be able to do these things. But overall, I think a lot of people would agree that civil society is kind of what we all want, right?
I would agree wholeheartedly with that. Absolutely. I really appreciate the research, Natalie, and the time that you've given us on the show this morning. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thanks for your interest. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Dr. Natalie Spadafora is a professor in the Department of Child and Youth Studies at Brock University. Rude behavior spiked in Ontario classrooms after COVID-19. Nearly all teachers in this survey, 95%, reported students' socio-emotional skills were lower or much lower than past cohorts. And I'll remind you that the pandemic closures shut down Ontario schools for about 100 days, longer than any other jurisdiction, which meant children were not exposed to a typical school routine, classroom norms, and teacher direction in a classroom setting. And so here we are today. The question I have for you is whether or not you are surprised by this. Is this an expected outcome? I'd love to hear, especially from anyone connected to our school system, because we've heard some stories before when we talk about violence in our classrooms and in our schools and what teachers are facing. And this may be not physical violence, but certainly disruption when it comes to the classroom setting. Are you surprised by what you're hearing from this research at Brock University? 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
We don't want uncivil adults, like really simply put, so fostering civility at a young age. So we have civil children, civil adolescents, and then these are going to be hopefully the civil adults that will interact within our society. So even though individually a lot of these actions don't seem like that big a deal, we know that cumulatively they are, and really emphasizing that because of maybe the long-term or broader societal implications.
Dr. Natalie Spadafora is a professor in the Department of Child and Youth Studies at Brock University. Shares some research with us that I came across yesterday and quite frankly was not surprised by in the least. Rude behavior spiked in Ontario classrooms after COVID-19, and the overwhelming majority of teachers referenced in this study, 95% of them, report that students' socio-emotional skills were lower or much lower than past cohorts. Does this surprise you in any way, or was this an expected outcome from our lengthy time spent in an online classroom environment? 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Your voice always welcome on the show. A few things jump out at me from this. One is, if you'll forgive a bit of a tangent here, I don't think this is exclusive to young people in our classrooms. I think there has been a general incivility since our COVID times. There has been a withdrawal from social activities on a rather grand scale, at least from where I'm sitting, insofar as we are so much more likely now to have food delivered, groceries delivered, virtual meetings, etc., instead of those actual in-person human connections. And I think it's to our detriment. I think we are social animals as human beings. So I don't know that this applies specifically to kids. In fact, I know it doesn't. One of the other things, I mean, just think of what we've seen in retail environments, right? And the signs that get posted about treating those people working in those retail environments with respect, et cetera. One of the other things, though, that occurs to me in this is how quickly we've seen these changes. I remember very well the conversations we were having during the pandemic, during the lockdowns, as we struggled and debated whether or not to reopen schools, et cetera. And we talked about the long-term implications of our decisions back in 2020 and 2021. It doesn't feel that long-term to me to be talking about this in 2024 and already seeing the impact of our decisions then. I thought it might be 5-10 years down the road. Here we are 2-3 years down the road, and we're seeing the impacts of all of that. Marino is on the phone with us this morning. Good morning, Marino.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm all right, thanks. How are you?
Good.
Good.
I guess when you talk about the issues in the schools, the only thing that would surprise me is that only 95% of the teachers would say that. I would really have thought it would be 100%. It has increased. There's no question about it. And I really don't know what the answer is. But I think if Dr. Spadafora wants a more accurate picture, she needs to talk to the EAs. They're the ones, the educational assistants, that deal directly with the behavioral students and with these incidents. And I guarantee you she will find 100% or more that would agree with her study.
Marino, that's an excellent point, and I appreciate you calling in and sharing that, because that is what we have heard virtually to a person when we talk about the violence in schools, right? And who faces it most often. And remember, these EAs are on the lower end of the educational system's pay scale. So they're facing the brunt of these behaviors and this violence and the injuries that can come with it, both physical and emotional. And they're certainly not earning top dollar as they go through that. Not that there necessarily has to be a correlation, but when we often talk about the amount of money spent in the education system and we look at salaries, et cetera, these are on the lower end. Simply pointing that out by way of fact in all of this. But Marino's not wrong. EAs bear the brunt of these things. And again, I'll just take it from what we're hearing in schools and what doesn't surprise us in the least. And I would extend that into our communities in general. Sadly, and whether it's because we got too comfortable being away from each other, we got too comfortable having half our face hidden behind a mask, whatever the case is, or you know what, maybe we just reached the end of our tether through all of it with everything that was going on and our difficulty adjusting to what was being asked of us. We just said enough is enough, and we lost patience with one another. But I see it in many walks of life today, and I would like I would like to hope. I want to remain hopeful that we will find our way back to a more civil understanding of one another and a more civil way of dealing with one another. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. Well, emailing Paul is keeping up his emailing ways this morning, not to be confused with the Professor Paul or Paul from Preston, both of whom phone the show. Emailing Paul writes to Mike at 570news.com. If rudeness has increased after lockdown, I'm wondering about the parental influence. For sure, right? I mean, that's how children learn many of their behaviors. There's no question about it. As I said before the break, I remain hopeful that we can find a way back to our more civil ways. And, you know, it occurred to me during that break, and I forgot actually to share it sooner because it happened on Saturday. And then by Monday, you know me, shiny object, if I don't write things down. Anyway, I had a chance encounter with an old friend of this program who we don't hear from anymore because he and I rarely saw eye to eye. And quite frankly, on many occasions, it got rather incivil in our back and forth. But I ran into him IRL in real life on the weekend. It was just a chance passing and it wasn't a long conversation. But you know what it was? It was civil. There was a smile, there was a friendly hello, an exchange of words, and we went on with our days. So I'm thinking, and just imagine how much different it is. So to the point I made earlier about, you know, being on a screen, doing things virtually, having things delivered to our homes and not interacting, maybe having a face hidden half by a mask. It's one thing to talk over the phone, over a radio show. It's another thing to see one another face to face, eye to eye, out in the real world. And the difference in our exchange was dramatic compared to what it had been like over many, many months over the air on this show or over the phone. So I just mark me down in the column of more human interactions, please. The more of them we have, the better. This is as human as we can get. From 9 to 1 every day, I hope that you participate in these conversations over the phone at minimum. And then when you're not interacting here, go interact with your fellow humans somewhere in public, okay? This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
This is where today's topics turn into today's talking points. It's local and it's Democratic radio at its finest. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
The Buddy League parents, athletes, coaches, and supporters who passionately advocated just last month. Their voices were not only unanimous, but impactful, underscoring the need to ensure that Cambridge becomes the inclusive and accessible city that we all want it to be. Yet despite their compelling stories and Council's unanimous support for this project, I was disheartened to see that the accessible diamond upgrades were entirely absent from the Mayor's 2025 draft budget. This omission represents more than a simple budgeting oversight. It reflects a troubling lack of emphasis on accessibility and inclusivity throughout the entire budget. In a document spanning 258 pages, the word accessible appears just 11 times. This lack of prioritization not only contradicts the values and missions outlined in our Cambridge Connected strategic plan, but it sends a clear message to our community members who rely on accessible facilities to participate in civic life. Their needs are not a priority.
The Mike Farwell Show continues
on 570 News Radio.
And that is the voice of Cam Linwood, who is the founder of the Buddy League, as he appeared as a delegation before Cambridge Council at a budget meeting last week. And through the magic of this radio and television program, Cam is on the line with us right now. Cam, good morning.
Mr. Farwell, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you, friend. How are you?
I am wonderful.
Glad to hear it. Just for a bit of background for those who may not know, what is the Buddy League?
So the Buddy League Buddy League Baseball is it's a program that's designed for children, youth, and adults with disabilities. And on the field, it really generally looks like traditional baseball, except we adapt the game to fit every athlete. So Buddy League's been around in Cambridge since 2018. It was modeled off a program called the Buddy League in Texas, and we have since 2018 we've been a Jays Care Challenger Baseball affiliate program, and certainly really value that partnership and that relationship as we're part of about 112 Challenger Baseball programs across the country.
So what was Cambridge intending to do with its ball diamonds to help make things more accessible and make things better for players in the Buddy League?
Yeah, this has been a conversation ongoing since the days of Mayor McGarry, actually. When we approached the city back in 2018 and said this is a vision that we would like to turn into reality. And through the years, we've had back and forth conversations with the city about how this is going to happen and how we can create a space that is fully accessible and fully inclusive to all who want to play baseball, not just people with disabilities, but everybody. And so the city and some very supportive councillors last year gave us some traction to the point where the vision kind of came to fruition. It was an opportunity to look at seeking some funding through the Jays Care Foundation, through their Field of Dreams program. So the city took it on their backs to actually design the field and worked in consultation with us and other programs to talk about what an accessible field would look like. So with artificial turf infields and bigger dugouts, so a wheelchair can turn around easily, and wheelchair seating for spectators. So the idea was that would continue and move forward, and so through a conversation, a delegation that was made to council on October 8th, where 19 of our families spoke about the value of a facility at Kin 1 in Cambridge. A motion was brought forward to advance the application to the Jays Care Field of Dreams grant program, as well as include it in the 2025 budget. So that's kind of where things kicked off when we got a little bit concerned when we didn't see it in the new budget.
Now, I understand that Mayor Liggett has left a door open at minimum. I mean, is there still a chance that this funding could be included in the 2025 budget?
Yeah, after we had the conversation when we delegated last week, we certainly got we approached it with some understanding from the perspective of timing of municipal budgets being what they are. We weren't fully aware of the fact that and the mayor alluded to the fact that the budget was being worked on back in June and certainly well before our delegations in October. But she finished that conversation sort of saying that there is certainly an opportunity. She was expecting an amendment to come forward on November 21st, and we're really excited to see what that looks like. It certainly gave us a lot of hope that what may have simply been a budget oversight gets corrected and certainly hopefully brought forward into the 2025 budget.
I have to think, though, Cam, as optimistic as you may be, and I will hold out that same hope because I've had the chance to get to know some of the families with Challenger Baseball in Kitchener and been a part of their season openers in each of the last couple of seasons. I love what it's doing, and I can see what it means to the kids and their families. But I have to guess that you would feel a little bit disheartened by continually having to remind people that, hey, like, we're over here and we should be included too.
And it's not just this field. I think it's an ongoing narrative. I mean, obviously, I've been in the adaptive coaching space for about 17 years now, and we do everything we can to adapt whatever game, whether it's baseball or hockey, to our athletes. And I think that's the best part of our program is that we make it work. But it gets to a point where it does become a little bit frustrating when we talk about built environments and the challenges that exist within them. And we know that when you build something accessible, everybody can still use it. I repeat that because it's really valuable information to note that if you do it and if you make it in such a way that everybody can still use it, the community really comes together. And we see that happen. And one of the reasons why we're really pushing for Kin 1 is we see the community come together and rally around Buddy League. And we hear from the local slow pitch programs and the local softball programs that they not only do they want to play our program, but they want to be involved. And so this is just part of that involvement.
These upgrades, and you mentioned the support that exists from the Jays Care Foundation, but is there a dollar figure attached to how much it would cost the city to get this done?
Yeah, the city's been working closely with a consultant, and we worked with them as far as what we would like to see in the field. And the initial consultant's report came back with a price tag of about $2.8 million. And certainly that's a big number, but in context for the value it offers, as well as some flexibility within that. I know when Councillor Roberts brought forward her motion, she said, if we had to do this in a phased approach, we would, to see if there was a way we could do parts of the field that make it more accessible to start with, and then build out the site to make the entire site more accessible down the road.
How many teams does the Buddy League have within it right now?
So the Buddy League grew significantly this year. We run 3 hours of programming and grew from 65 athletes to 112 athletes this past season. And that's with no promotion. We run a small but mighty ship, and we like to think that we people come to us through word of mouth from the perspective of they hear good things about our program and want to check it out for themselves. Now, certainly if we have a facility that is able to support more athletes, we are more than excited to grow that program even more and actually start promoting. I know it's hypothetical, but if this does not enter into the 2025 budget in Cambridge, what's the impact to Buddy League? Certainly, we'll continue to work with the city to find all best available options, and if it simply means to try and figure out how we can improve some of the real challenges that exist at Kin 1 for now, but continue to work and focus on building something forward. The other side of it is, even if it's not included in the budget, one of the things that gave us a little bit of additional hope was the feedback we got from Councillor Schwery specifically, who said that after this meeting, she got a lot of outreach from the community, and businesses wanted to support this. And she used language around things like the time is now. And so we're hoping that even if the budget process doesn't manifest the way we're truly hoping it does, the community will show out and support as well.
I admire the determination on your part, Cam, and all of the families here, and raising more awareness with us on the show today. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Mike.
Cam Linwood is the founder of the Buddy League. Full disclosure, an old buddy, no pun intended with Buddy League. Cam and I go way, way, way back, and I've had the opportunity to be a part of his adaptive hockey programs, which he's been running, he mentioned, almost 20 years in the space now. Just recently awarded for all of that work by an award from Cambridge Sports, and rightly so. Kathy Ferguson-Lepar in Kitchener has just been instrumental in getting Challenger Baseball moving, which is all part of the same idea behind the Buddy League, which is making the game accessible to all. And they were thrown a bit of a curveball when they learned in the city of Cambridge's budget that the money was not being included. And they remain hopeful that whatever it is, the amendment that is expected to come forward next week comes forward. It will get that money. It's not insignificant. It's almost $3 million, but this is an opportunity to demonstrate as a city that Cambridge is inclusive. Cam Linwood, the founder of Buddy League, joining us on the program this morning. There was something else that came from that budget consultation last week in Cambridge that caught my ear, and I wanted to share with you this morning because it's entirely possible that the presenter, the delegate at the meeting, Chris Clydesdale, and I could be best friends. I'll share with you what he had to say at that budget consultation last week in Cambridge right after this timeout. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We just had a conversation with Cam Linwood, who's the founder of the Buddy League, which makes the game of baseball more inclusive to people of all ages and abilities, most importantly. And they had, as families connected to the Buddy League, made multiple presentations to Cambridge City Council in hopes of getting the Kin 1 ball diamond in the city of Cambridge made more accessible. Think of wider dugouts, for example, so a wheelchair could turn around inside the dugout, because some Buddy League ball players are in wheelchairs. Make some space in the stands for wheelchair seating, because spectators may also be in wheelchairs, etc. A $2.8 million line item that Cam and other supporters of the Buddy League were surprised to not see in the draft budget released about a month ago now, close to it anyway, last several weeks. And so Cam appeared at a budget session to provide some feedback last week and is hopeful that the money can still find its way into the budget and Cambridge can sort of back up its mission of inclusivity with some funding to make the baseball diamonds more inclusive. One of the other things that I heard in that public meeting on the budget spoke so directly to me that I wanted to share it with you this morning, because I think Chris Clydesdale, who was the speaker at the time, I think he and I could be best friends. Like, I would love to have a beer with Chris, because this is what he had to say at the public input session for the Cambridge budget last week.
Before you're reaching in my pocket for more, I suggest that you look at yourselves for what you can do more. I talked to my council member at one point last year about the fact that bylaw is not enforcing bylaws, okay? Last night and the night before, my wife and I walked around our neighborhood and I counted over 40 property and parking violations. From people parking within 1 meter of the person's laneway, from people parked over sidewalks, from people parked in bus stops, causing the bus to offload passengers on the street as opposed to in the bus stops, from people putting their garbage out before 7 o'clock the night before and removing their garbage bins before 7 o'clock on the day of garbage. If you're looking for cash cows, look at the people that aren't behaving properly. You have the means and you have the ability to tax them through their own actions. It's reasonable, it's appropriate, and you've already got that authority.
There you go. Chris Clydesdale at last week's budget input session, the public session at Cambridge Council. Look, I want to be clear. He is so invested in this. He's getting into when you put your garbage bins out to the curb for collection the next morning, right? You have to have them there by 7 a.m. morning of, but you know, you got to pick them up in a timely fashion and don't put them out too early and all of those other things. Like, Chris is invested. I want to be really clear here. I don't want to be hard on bylaw officers and bylaw departments, because I think they are under-resourced. I think they do the very best they can with the situations that they are faced with. And as a growing community, we have more and more complaints like Chris's. And he's not wrong. In principle, the man is not wrong, right? Before you come to me and put your hand in my pocket for more tax dollars, why don't you collect the revenue that exists if only you would enforce your bylaws? And this spoke so directly to me because I have been on my high horse lately complaining about what I see in school zones, because I live in one, before school in the morning and in the afternoon at pickup time. It's usually the afternoon at pickup time that I see it because that's when I'm home. But the parking/driving behaviors are beyond the pale. And I have said, much like Chris, if we were serious about generating revenue for cash-strapped cities, we could just patrol the school zones and ticket all the illegally parked vehicles and make a small fortune. And in fact, our cities do this. They do conduct this enforcement, but they can't get to all 100 plus school zones every day, twice a day, right? I would still suggest to you we could get away with hiring more officers because they would pay for themselves through the increased revenues collected. The point really is that the frustrations have reached such a point that I'm getting on my high horse here on the show. Chris is showing up to delegate at a public input session for the Cambridge budget to say, listen, we have bylaws for a reason, and I don't feel as though the bylaws are being enforced. So I think a little bit stricter enforcement will go a long way. And that's a message to all of our cities when it comes to the enforcement of existing bylaws. On school zones in particular, I was so happy to see this morning from Student Transportation Services of Waterloo Region, a survey that we can fill out to let the experts know how we experience school zones. You can bet your bottom dollar I'm filling out this survey. And you can too. You can find it on my X feed at Farwell_WR. In the meantime, I'm going to try to find Chris and have a beer with that guy. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. There is a call to keep CTS sites open across the province. As you know, Ontario Premier Doug Ford is insistent on closing 10 of them, replacing them with heart hubs, homelessness and addiction recovery treatment hubs. One of those sites to be closed is the CTS site in downtown Kitchener. Interfaith Grand River is the organization calling for these sites to remain open across the province. They will join us on the show in about 30 minutes' time, just after the 11 a.m. news. Just wanted to give you a heads up about that conversation coming. And an hour from now, you won't want to miss this either, sharing some stories of Gordon Lightfoot from the men who played with him for many a decade. The Lightfoot Band is playing at the Centre in the Square this coming weekend, and we have a couple of the band members joining us at 11:30 this morning to share some stories about Golden Gord, so I don't think you'll want to miss that either. Right now, I'm going to get you to the 570 News Center for an update, and then he's a two-time OUA MVP. He just beat his hometown team in the Yates Cup, and he's off to the UTEC Bowl. He's with us on the show right after this. It's the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Okay, so you know that this station is the home of Kitchener Rangers hockey. And this Rangers hockey team is off to a whale of a start this season, having an entire month of October during which they did not lose a single game in regulation. However, there is another sports team in this community that has been making waves all season long, because forget not losing in regulation. How about not losing at all? For the entire season, a perfect season for the Wilfrid Laurier University Golden Hawks, capped off this past weekend by a Yates Cup victory over arch rivals Western. And Taylor Elgersma is the quarterback of that Golden Hawks team and joins us for a chat. Taylor, good morning.
Morning. How's it going?
Well, it's going fine with me, but seriously, How about you? I mean, coming off that big win on the weekend, where are you at today?
We're just getting ready for our UTech Bowl prep. We leave for Lennoxville tomorrow morning, 9-hour bus ride up there to Quebec, and so we celebrated this weekend, enjoyed the win, and then got right back to work on Monday.
How did it feel kind of avenging the loss from a season ago when Western beat you and you beating your hometown team because you're a London boy?
Yeah, I think that it was something that we talked about all this offseason was we had to go to their place and play Yates Cup, and that didn't go so well last year. And so getting to bring them down to our crowd, getting to do it in our city and take our revenge on last year, it definitely felt special, and it was a lot of fun.
We were following along your game, Taylor, as we were on the bus ourselves heading to a Kitchener Rangers game last Saturday, and it was close at halftime. You were up by just a touchdown. What changed? What helped you pull away from the Mustangs in the Yates Cup?
Yeah, I think that we were up at half on them last year in the Yates Cup as well, and so when we went into the locker room, we just said, we've been here before. We learned our lessons from last year. This is when we really got to put our foot on the gas, and we came out and scored our first couple possessions out of half and kind of kept the momentum from there.
You came to the game of football rather late. In fact, you were a hockey player first. How did you make the transition? What got you interested in football?
Yeah, so I played hockey my entire life. Once I kind of got to the midget years, I realized that hockey was probably going to end for me in the junior B level. I realized that I wasn't going to make the O, and so I kind of wanted to switch and pursue something that I think I could go further in. I started playing football, and I realized that was probably the best fit for me.
You could go a little further, perhaps, in football. Back-to-back OUA Player of the Year awards. No big deal, eh?
I think I made the right choice.
How does that feel to be recognized like that by the league?
Yeah, I mean, I just feel super blessed. I mean, I have such a great team around me, such a great coaching staff around me, and such a great support around me with my family and friends. And so I'm just so thankful for everyone around me for allowing me to be in this position. And, I just feel super blessed.
What's the ceiling for you, Taylor? You talk about maybe going further in the game of football than you thought you might have been able to go in hockey. I mean, you could come back for a fifth year at Laurier or pro. I mean, what are you looking towards in the future?
Yeah, I want to take this thing as far as I can go. So I have plans to go down and play some bowl games in the States in this off season. Obviously, I got to combine prep and be ready for CFL draft combine prep. And so once we finish off this thing, I got 2 more weeks of focus here. Finishing off our season, I'll get right into combine prep and bowl game prep so I can go show the best I can and try and give myself a chance in the pros.
What did your parents say about your athletic pursuits from hockey to football? I mean, couldn't you have gone to something non-contact, a little safer maybe?
My parents have been, so supportive of me throughout my entire athletic journey. I think that they know the type of player I was in hockey and the way that I like to play the game of football. Contact is definitely something that I enjoy. It's definitely one of the reasons why I chose those 2 games. And so I think they know that that's part of it, part of my personality, and they've been so supportive, and I'm so thankful for them.
What did it mean to have the home crowd on your side for the Yates Cup and really throughout the entire season? I mean, you guys were filling that stadium week after week.
Yeah, I mean, our fan base really showed up in the Yates Cup, and like you said, they've been showing up all year, but especially the Yates Cup, it felt like the whole city of Waterloo was there. They were loud, they were boisterous, and I mean, crowds impacts the game so much. They kept momentum on our side when we were scoring, and they brought us momentum back when Western was going on their run. And so being able to do that in front of that crowd for them, for this city, it was pretty special and definitely a memory I'll remember for the rest of my life.
You talk about that long bus ride to get to the UTech Bowl. First of all, how do you travel? How do you manage 9-hour bus rides? What's your secret?
A lot of change in positions, letting that back stretch out because the back of the bus gets a bit crowded. I mean, a couple of us vets have our spots now that we have our ways that we can move around and keep ourselves loose. But we have some stops. We'll get out, do some stretches. But a lot of listening to music, a lot of watching film, and just hanging with the boys. I mean, yeah, the bus rides are long, but I wouldn't change it for anything. That's where some of the best memories are made.
The longest trip we have to make is 8 hours to Sault Ste. Marie with the Rangers. And I'm not nearly as big a guy as you are, but still, little shifting of position, and you got to find something entertaining to listen to along the way for sure.
For sure. Definitely the strategies.
So you're on the road for the UTEC Bowl at Bishops.
Yep.
What's it going to take to pick up the win against the Gators?
Yeah, I think we just got to play our football. I mean, we've been showing all year how good we are. I mean, our O-line's been playing great. All of our skill positions, our defense has been playing great. And so it's all about us this week. We know that Bishops is 10-0 as well for a reason. They're a good football team. And so we just got to rely on our guys up front, play 4 quarters of football, make sure we're locked in the entire way. And I'm confident that we'll come back with the UTEC Bowl and be prepping for the Vanier the week after that.
You talk about Bishops also being unbeaten, so we have a battle of the unbeatens in the UTEC Bowl. Was there a point during this season, Taylor, that you allowed yourself to think about how close you were getting and having an undefeated season?
Yeah. I think that's been something that I've been visualizing for this whole offseason. When I came to this program, we talked about it. We talked about it with the group of guys that I came into the recruiting class with, and we said these were the things that we wanted to do. We wanted to go undefeated. We wanted to win Yates Cups. We wanted to win Vanier Cups. And so we were so close last year, and losing that game the way that we did last year, I think really just this entire offseason we've been visualizing this season. We've been visualizing the undefeated. We've been visualizing the trophies. And so it just feels nice to get the first one. We still got 2 more to go, but to get that first one and be finally able to say that we're lifting something above our heads, that feels pretty good.
A little bit of unfinished business this year.
For sure. Most definitely.
Taylor, congratulations on all of the success so far. We're going to be cheering you on. The entire community's behind you at the UTEC Bowl and further. Go get them against the Gators.
Thank you very much. We will.
Thanks very much for being here. Take care.
Take care. See ya.
Taylor Elgersma, quarterback for the Wilfrid Laurier University Golden Hawks. The Yates Cup champion Wilfrid Laurier University Golden Hawks, who are in action again on Saturday at Bishops in the UTEC Bowl. And should Laurier be successful there, to the Vanier Cup they go. And you heard Taylor just say it. That's kind of been the mission. They were oh so close in the Yates Cup last year. They visualized an undefeated season and the trophies that could follow. They've got one. They go for the UTEC Bowl on Saturday, and if they're successful, the Vanier Cup comes after that. A quick break. When we come back, from football to football, if you will. In Europe, they call soccer football or footy. And there is a young man, emphasis on young, from the city of Kitchener, who is turning heads in, I'll call it soccer because I'm a North American that way, but he's turning heads internationally in the game. You'll meet him next on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Our next guest was introduced to me as a Canadian underdog story. And who doesn't love an underdog story? Have I introduced you to my friend Rocky Balboa? In this case, however, the Bend It Like Beckham movie may be more applicable. But this young man, Yusufu Sanda, is described as, and I will quote from the underdog story, a standout talent from Kitchener who made a significant impact during a recent tournament, playing both as a striker and center back. Yusufu led his squad with defensive dominance, allowing just one goal in 2 group stage matches, while also netting 3 himself. As a finalist in the Inter Miami Cup, he has earned a strong reputation as a versatile player, excelling in any position. Known for his defensive reliability, composure on the field, and lightning-fast reflexes, Yusufu is equally effective at scoring goals. And this praise and the underdog story comes from Yusufu's performance at the inaugural Norwich City MENA Cup. And Yusufu Sanda makes time for our show this morning. Yusufu, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right, thanks. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Thank you.
How did you get started in the game of soccer?
I got started when I was really young. I was about 4 years of age when I started playing soccer with my friends, just for fun. And then I joined a local developmental team when I was about 5 years old and started playing with them.
You were
Played with them for,
I'm sorry, you were able to find that development team right in Kitchener?
no, back in Cameroon when
Okay.
I was about 5 years old.
Yep.
And played with them for about 3 years. Then I moved to Canada when I was 9 years old. Then joined Olympiacos Kitchener, which is now Celeste Soccer Academy. Play with Olympiacos Kitchener, and also play with Toka Pro FC traveling team and CAF Selects.
I love that you were able to find high-level soccer even once you moved to Kitchener after you left Cameroon.
Yeah. When I moved from Cameroon to Canada, I was looking for a team because I lived in Ottawa, and then I moved from Ottawa to Kitchener, looking for a team to start my career here in Canada.
Who has made the biggest impact on your game, Yusufu?
My coaches. My coaches made the biggest impact of my game because they're my biggest motivators. They push me. They make me work harder. They make me work above my limits, and they help me a lot. They make the biggest impact in my game.
How does it feel to lead the top U12 team in the country and then play at the Inter Miami Cup in the U.S.?
It feels great. And I never thought I'd be in such great experience like that. It just came, and it feels great having to play with such great teams, play against competitive teams, and actually do perform great.
I understand that Lionel Messi's son was in attendance at that Miami Cup too.
Yeah, they were playing right in the next field next to us. We were playing against, can't remember the team, but we were playing, and Lionel Messi's son was playing right next to us.
So who's better, you or Messi's son?
To be honest, I've never watched him play, and he's never watched me play either. So I don't really know.
Okay, that's a good answer. That's a very, very humble answer. Good for you. What about the opportunity that you had to fly to England and win 7 out of 8 games against some of the world's top teams? What was that experience like for you?
It was a great experience. I never thought I'd experience something like that, playing against top teams in England and performing great while playing against them. I never thought I would be experiencing something like that. And yeah, I look forward to going more tournaments like that.
How do you prepare for tournaments like this, Yusufu?
I try my best to stay mentally focused about the game and the tournament. Try to prepare myself physically and practice hard, put extra time in my practice and work on my weakness.
What weaknesses are there in your game?
Weaknesses in my game, I would say try my best to work on my weak foot and try to improve as much as possible.
Next year with Toka Pro, you're going to get the chance to go to Spain, maybe even Italy. What are you looking forward to next year?
I'm looking forward to work on myself more, to improve, to get better than I am right now, and work on my weakness, also work on my strength, and keep it simple and play well.
Do you think you might get the chance to play professionally someday?
Yeah, I wish I get the chance to play professionally. I'm so, putting in the work, so training hard, practicing every day, trying to improve myself, trying to get better and make it as a professional player one day.
Congratulations on your success so far. Keep up the hard work, and we look forward to watching your career. Thank you for joining the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Yusufu Sanda, he's the underdog story, the Canadian kid who played so well at the inaugural Norwich City MENA Cup this past year, scoring 3 times in group matches and showing off his defensive ability. Originally from Cameroon, made his way to Kitchener, where he continued to develop his game, now playing with Toca Pro, and will get the opportunity next year to go to Spain, maybe even Italy. The true underdog story of the kid from Kitchener that's making waves internationally in the game of soccer. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Is my undershirt clean? I sure hope I put on it. I mean, I put on a clean undershirt, but it's an undershirt. Sometimes they got marks and stains because it's an undershirt. It's got sleeves. It's short-sleeved, but it's still an undershirt. That's what I'm down to here in the studio today, because if you know, you know. And I had to go tarps off, at least sweaters off. So damn hot in here. But here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking move over John Krasinski. Sexiest man alive? Yeah, but what about the sexiest talk show host on AM radio from 9 until 1 every day? Huh? How about that? Is that... Actually, I better put my sweater back on if I want to win that one. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I feel it necessary to preface this next conversation with a little bit of a backstory. I'll be brief, I promise, but our next guest, who is an esteemed member of Interfaith Grand River, has been an esteemed member of our community for many a decade now. And in fact, I grew up directly across the street from his house. His kids and I hung out together. I was likely disciplined with good reason on many an occasion because in my wayward preteen ways, I needed corralling and putting back in the proper lane, so to speak. And so I always knew this gentleman as Mr. Ballmer. It will be very difficult for me. I will try to address him. I mean, I'm in my 50s now, for crying out loud. Surely I can call a fellow adult by his first name, but it's going to be very strange. So I just wanted you to understand that and understand how well he knows me as we get into the conversation this morning with Dr. Bryce Ballmer, a member of Interfaith Grand River. Bryce, good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning, Mike. How are you? Good morning, Mr. Farwell.
Yeah, throw that one at me, why don't you? It's really good to get your time on the show. Thank you for this.
You're welcome.
You have issued an open letter to Premier Ford asking that CTS sites in the province remain open. Why?
CTS sites are a place where people who are addicted to drugs, some who just come for once or twice, but basically a lot of people who are addicted to drugs, who have had trauma in their background and no longer trust many people. They don't trust people in their family, in social agencies, police, other people in the community. And so the safe consumption site is an intermediary way of helping them, number one, stay safe. Like in harm reduction, we always try to make sure that there are not other problems that impede the person's safety or his or her ability to live longer and live healthily. And so it's a harm reduction to keep them on drugs that are not contaminated. And then second of all, the people in the safe consumption site talk with the people and begin to develop a trust and develop not a friendship, but a kindness that can be received by the person who's taking the drugs as they go through a process of thinking maybe there's another life for them or another way of living other than the drug culture and the drug culture they're in. Anyway, so that's what's happening. And so when you take away the safe consumption site, you're taking away an avenue for people to move towards a healthier, more appropriate lifestyle that they probably want, but because of trauma and because of other negative things that happen in their lives, they cover that over with drugs.
I think safe is really the operative word in these conversations, because the reason Premier Ford made the decision that he made to close down 10 of these sites, including the one in Kitchener, is because they are in neighborhoods that are too close to schools or daycare centers, etc. And the safety of those neighborhoods has been raised as a concern for the people living in them. How do you suggest we balance that?
Well, what we found from Vancouver and some other places where they've done extensive research on safe consumption sites is that two things happen. One is there's 35% less drugs among the people who use the safe consumption site. And second of all, the drug use in the neighborhood is 35% less. So, I'm thinking of downtown Kitchener. You have a whole array of places where the people are living, whether it's an encampment or a rooming house or whatever. Some other services there, like the St. John's Kitchen. Other programs there for people to take advantage of on their way out of a drug-oriented world. And it becomes, actually the neighborhood becomes safer. We've also heard from the daycare center that's at the Kitchener City Hall, and they have had no problem at all with anybody using drugs in the neighborhood. So one has to really ask, is this just a political thing? Like, if we were going to establish a safe consumption site, I would be concerned about two things. Number one, where are the people who need that site and where are they living? And number two, is it safe for other people in the surrounding area? And but we have a site right now, and it's operating, and it is serving people. I just learned from Police Chief Farwell that we have had over 600 overdoses in the Waterloo region this year. We're already well over what we had last year, and we have had 76 deaths from drugs and overdoses, whereas last year I think our total for the year was 56. It was in the 50s, and here we are at 67 already. So, this is a big issue, and we need to try to help people who are struggling with this issue to find a way out of the issue. And part of that is a safe consumption site.
With those numbers, though, Bryce, increasing, even with the CTS site open, does that suggest to you in any way that maybe we need a different approach?
Well, we could use more approaches. Like, what bothers me the most is that he is thinking of a new program, but he's closing down the sites before the new program starts. And for me, I would like to see the new program begin and new programs going, because we don't have enough services in mental health or in addictions for people to take advantage of. Many of the addiction sites for recovery, you have to have a long waiting list. And if you have a long waiting list, the person will get deeper into the addiction rather than stay sober. So he's proposing something. He has another proposal that's really problematic, and he's thinking that he wants to make people go to a site, involuntary placing people in a site. And those of us who've worked in addictions, we know that unless a person voluntarily wants to move in that direction, you're going to be very unsuccessful with the person. It's not even that. I mean, it has limits to success even for those who want to be in a program for recovery, because of the very powerful societal pressures on that person, with stigma, with friends that are out there asking them to use again, with family dysfunction, on and on and on. So it's hard for a person to leave that addictive lifestyle. Many do, through AA, through House of Friendship, through other programs, but it's not an easy road. And to make it to involuntarily work with a person is like putting them in prison. And in prison, in places like that, is where you find the trauma is reinforced, and it makes a person's life worse than it is right now.
The open letter that you and your fellow members of Interfaith Grand River issued last week, 1 week ago tomorrow, pardon me.
Right.
What's the response been?
Well, we've had interviews from people at your radio station and CBC, and I think the main thing of it is to help it get out into the community. We haven't had responses from the politicians, but we'll see what happens.
Mr. Balmer, I appreciate your time on the show. Thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, let's see each other sometime. Maybe a cup of coffee.
I would love that. Sounds great.
Take care.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye. Dr.
Bryce Balmer, a member of Interfaith Grand River, a former neighbor. I grew up across the street, directly across the street from his house. His kids were my friends. We hung out in the neighborhood. And when Mr. Balmer mentioned the House of Friendship, all those decades ago when I was a wee lad playing with his kids in the neighborhood, I remember his work even back then with the House of Friendship. And we went and did actually a little dramatic performance one time. His sons and I played parts in a little play we put on through the House of Friendship way back then. I say that by way of background. This man has practiced what he preaches for many a decade now. It remains a contentious issue. And because we just talked a little bit about involuntary treatment, which is connected to the Big City Mayor's Caucus. We've talked about this on the show, the Big City Mayor's Caucus meeting a few weeks ago now, whereby a motion was adopted that stopped short of asking the province to invoke the notwithstanding clause, but eventually, with some back and forth between the Premier and Big City Mayors, essentially what we're going to move towards is the opportunity for municipalities to forcibly clear encampments in their communities, move people along, and ultimately, I do believe, direct them into treatment, whether they want to go there or not. Whether or not we have those spaces in treatment facilities, I have not the foggiest idea. But I do know that encampments are being cleared in Cambridge as we speak, and in Guelph later today. We'll touch on that as we continue on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Very much connected to the conversation we just had with Dr. Bryce Balmer, a member of Interfaith Grand River, a group that last week issued an open letter to Ontario Premier Doug Ford, local MPPs, asking that CTS sites remain open in the province, including the one, of course, in Kitchener. There's another in Guelph that is slated for closure. Very much connected to that is the issue of encampments in our community, because there is a hope, and dare I say, a movement at this point, to give municipalities the power to clear people from encampments, move them along to where I'm not entirely sure, and also, along with that power to clear the encampments, the ability to direct people living there into treatment, whether they want to go there or not. Involuntary, forced, mandatory, take your pick of adjective, they would be moved into treatment. Every day at the beginning of the show, I give you what's called the Farwell Show 5 things that are going on that might be of interest to you. One of the things in the Farwell Show 5 today was about the city of Cambridge clearing the long-standing encampment dubbed Shantytown on Dundas Street North. And according to the city of Cambridge today, it has confirmed that in response to safety concerns identified at 415 Dundas Street North, in the area surrounding an encampment and neighboring railway, that for the safety of the surrounding community and of those living on the property, the encampment was removed from the private property on November 12th. That's yesterday. This followed an official order regarding the structures given September 16th and October 22nd. Work at the site will continue throughout the week. There is heavy machinery there today, by the way. The decision, the statement from the City of Cambridge goes on to say, was made following a series of emergency calls to this location associated with the use of fires. The property is also in close proximity to the rail site, which has dangerous goods such as petroleum. The cost associated with the cleanup will be billed to the property owner through property taxes. Our priority remains to address the complex needs of those individuals experiencing homelessness, recognizing the importance of providing dignified solutions and services. At the time of work commencing, there were 4 individuals on site. We continue to work together with our regional and community partners to ensure all necessary supports are available to those affected and to connect them to more appropriate housing and community supports. Unfortunately, not all people staying at this site accepted the provided supports. We remain committed to working with our partners to pursue long-term solutions to the community's housing challenges. Our collective response requires ongoing support and compassion from our entire community, with the understanding that connecting people with the wide range of person-centered options and services takes time and care. That from the City of Cambridge this morning as it began yesterday to clear that encampment dubbed Shantytown on Dundas Street North. You'll remember, I was going to say some years ago, it's at least 2, isn't it? I'm sorry, I'm going off the top of my head, but I'm sure you'll remember as well as I, the small-ish, if you will, encampment in Kitchener, Charles Street by Sterling, directly across from Cameron Heights Collegiate. Big, heavy equipment was brought in to destroy that campsite, right? Everything that was there scooped up with the big machinery, put into a dumpster, and the people moved along. The outcry from that, I mean, my goodness gracious. And this is happening much more quietly, I will just say. But it's happening. Also, we have been made aware that in Guelph, later today, in fact, at 4 this afternoon, it is expected to take place, St. George's Square, right in the heart of Guelph's downtown. We are being told that the city intends to forcibly evict the unhoused population occupying St. George's Square. This notwithstanding clause set forth by the Premier of Ontario allows mayors to override the Supreme Court of Justice's ruling declaring that evicting the homeless populations living in encampments is against the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The shelter space in Guelph is limited and is restrictive and unsafe for some. Many require the person applying to be sober, which is difficult for many without proper mental health and substance use support. And it goes on from there. If St. George's Square is evicted, there will be many that will not have a place to go. So it's happening in Cambridge as we speak, and we anticipate that later today, starting at 4 this afternoon, the city of Guelph is going to crack down on the long-standing encampment in the heart of its downtown in St. George's Square. That's what's going on the ground in our communities today as we continue to deal with, I don't know if it's fair to say as best we can, the issues of homelessness, encampments, and addiction in our cities. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. You may remember that on Monday morning we started the show with the Gordon Lightfoot classic, The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, because it was on Sunday, the 10th, that the anniversary of the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald was celebrated. 49 years. Did you know that the song was actually supposed to be just album filler? And it turned out to be one of Gord's biggest hits. That's just one little story. We're going to hear so many more because the Lightfoot Band is playing at the Center in the Square this Saturday night. And the members of that band who spent decades alongside Gordon Lightfoot, a couple of them, are joining our show right after this update from the 570 News Center to talk about this weekend's show and their memories of Golden Gourd. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I have been looking forward to this conversation since it was first presented to me. Massive Gordon Lightfoot fan. Many of his songs are on my Farzi's Faves playlist at home. And the Lightfoot Band will be playing at the Center in the Square on Saturday night. A couple of the members who will be on that stage are joining us on the program this morning. I'm sure we'll get a story or two. My good friend and former colleague, Ed Ringwald, a.k.a. Pee Wee Charles, is with us this morning. Pee Wee, good morning.
How are you, Mike? Nice to talk with you again.
Oh, man, is it ever nice to talk with you, friend. Thanks for making the time this morning.
I really appreciate you doing this for us. It's very nice, and I'm sure we'll have some good stories for you.
I can't wait to hear them all. We also have Rick Haynes with us. Rick, 50 years, give or take, with Gordon Lightfoot on bass guitar. Rick, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, 55 with Gordon, actually. Continuous years since 1968, but who's counting? Yeah, it was quite a surreal ride. Thanks for all your kind words, Mike.
Oh, my goodness, Rick. Thank you for all the great music. Like, truly, it has touched so many lives, as I'm sure you know. But since you mentioned it, and you are counting, 55 years, can you take us back to what led you and Gord to connect and start making music together?
Well, way back in 1968, I had been playing around the Toronto area with a couple of bands, and long story short, one of the members of the band worked at the famous Long McQuaid downtown in Toronto, and he was going to move on with a band that wanted to go on the road, and I was already married with a baby and wasn't interested in doing that at that time that way. But he said, listen, he said, the other day, Gordon Lightfoot came into our store asking quietly around if any of us knew of a bass player that he could tap. And he said, Don told me, he said, you got to go and get that gig. That would be a great gig for you. And I was aware of Gord, and he was up and coming. And I started doing the search, like through the Musicians Union. And anyway, I got a hold of Red Shea, who is his guitar player, and the conversation started, and Gord ended up calling me. I auditioned for the gig. It went very well, and I ended up with a gig.
Now, Ed, is it true that Gord and Company was the first show to play the Center in the Square here in Kitchener when it opened back in the 80s and then came back to your place for an after party?
You all survived.
And you all survived.
No, I believe Gordon was the very first act to open the Center in the Square. And again, this is my hometown. I've lived here all my life, so it was quite an honor. And we had just built a home, Kathy and myself, and we weren't in it that long, and we invited them all back to the house after for a party. And the big semi, the road truck that carried all equipment parked out front, and it was cars. And I think there was more people than I knew there possible, but it was a great party, and it was a memorable evening that I'll always remember. So that's why it's so special to be coming back and playing the Center again. And I understand it's been renovated too, which is pretty cool. So yeah, it's going to be exciting.
So, Ed, how did it come to pass? And many who follow music know that you are one of this country's most highly regarded steel guitar players. How did you end up playing with this group?
Thanks. Thanks for the kind words, man. I appreciate it. At the time, I just got back from studying music in Dallas, Texas, and I was Ian Tyson asked me to join his TV show with the Great Speckled Bird. He had a TV show back then, a syndicated show that was a national TV show, and I was on that show. And at that time, Red Shea was playing guitar, who played all the amazing parts in Gord's early stuff with Rick. And he asked me to play on an album called Cold on the Shoulder. And Rainy Day People was the first single that was released. I'm sure a lot of the fans probably remember that song. It was pretty cool. And then Gord said, hey, would you like to maybe join the band. So I remember he flew me out to Seattle to see them all playing, and they were playing at some university, I believe. And he said, "Would you like to hit the gig?" And it was like, "Oh, really?" Of course I would. So yeah, and then Gord asked me to join the band, and we was a memorable 16 years with him. So it was a lot of fun.
Incredible. Rick, it's been about 18 months or so now since we lost Gord. And as somebody who knew him so well and worked with him so closely, how did Gord's passing impact you?
Pretty heavily, because to me, after knowing Gord for so long, I expected, yes, he's having a medical issue right now, but he's going to come back from it, because he was a tough guy. He had a very strong constitution. He'd been through a couple of major medical situations before, and we were all hoping that he would overcome this one. But, in retrospect, some things caught up with him that were insurmountable, and he wasn't able to survive it. And that was a huge impact on all of us. And, of course, Ed hadn't been with us for a while, so we started talking about what we were going to do a few months afterwards, and we decided that we wanted to get the Lightfoot Band back together as we had been continuously throughout. I mean, our drummer, Barry Keane, drummer and percussionist, joined us. He started playing on a record with us in 72. Ed joined us in the 70s. Our keyboard player, Mike Heffernan, joined us shortly after that in 81. We've had a couple of guitar players pass on, but it became a thing where we wanted to keep the songs of Gordon Lightfoot going properly, and it's so exciting for us to be coming back to the center in the square this weekend, because, as you mentioned there, and we had a party at Ed's house, I remember that, opening up that wonderful venue. Now, the other thing, there's another part of this story, that we were actually scheduled to come with Gordon to the center of the square in 2022, at the end of our Western tour. In other words, on the way back from out west after Winnipeg, we were going to have, I think, 2 days off, and then we were supposed to play at the center in the square. There was some complications. I think partly the renovation hadn't been quite completed yet, and Gord was really sick by the time we got to Winnipeg from Vancouver. We've been working our way across the country. Anyway, he had to go in the hospital then, and he was declining. So for a lot of reasons, I'm very excited about coming to the center in the square this Saturday, and I wanted to bring Ed on board, because there was so much magic in the music when Ed was with us for those 16 years, and we had a lot going on musically. And we really missed Ed after he was gone. He moved on. But this is going to be a reunion like you don't see very often.
No question about it. I'm so excited for the show on Saturday. Before I let you go, Rick, I'll start with you, because we just passed the 49th anniversary Sunday of the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. True
Right.
that song was just supposed to be album filler?
Well, yeah, first of all, because it was so long, nobody ever thought it could be a single. And it was for an album that we were just finishing, and we still had some studio time left, and it happened to come across as a first take, what we call, because it actually became the record the first time we played it through, and the tape was rolling, and we never could get it better than that first take.
Incredible. Absolutely love it. Ed, how does it feel for you to get back together with this gang and be on that stage Saturday in your hometown?
Oh, I wish you could see the smile on my face. I'm so excited. Gord was such an international success in folk and folk rock and country, and he really helped define the pop sound of the 60s and 70s, and he's one of the greatest Canada songwriters. So to join all my buddies back on stage, I have so many memories of recording all those songs like The Wreck and just so many of them. It was just so magical at Eastern Sound in Toronto. And there's so many stories we could tell you. We could go on for hours here, but I am so excited to play with them. They're all like brothers to me, and we're going to make some good music and bring back a lot of memories. We're going to take you down the Carefree Highway, I guess. So.
Well said, sir. And I'm sure there will be a story or three shared during the show on Saturday as well.
Well, we do share stories on the stage. That's part of our presentation. I'd like to say that we do tell little stories, memories that we have, and Ed's going to be telling one himself, and had one or two. And I was also wanted to mention that we don't do that backstage pass thing like a lot of bands do. We don't sell backstage passes. What we like to do is after the show, we like to come out and just meet the audience in the lobby. Everybody effectively gets a backstage pass.
Incredible. Cannot wait for Saturday. Gentlemen, truly, thank you for the music. It's left such an imprint, continues to leave an imprint. I wasn't kidding when I said it remains on my playlist, all of it. I love it and can't wait to have you on stage Saturday. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you so much.
Rick Haynes, you bet, Eddie. Take care, bud.
All right, take care, man.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Rick Haynes and Ed Pee Wee Charles Ringwald, a couple of members of the Lightfoot Band. They're playing center in the square this Saturday. I looked just before we chatted. There might be a ticket or two if you're still interested in taking in the show. It's going to be terrific, as you'd expect. I mean, other than Rush, is there a better catalog of music? Anyway, you know what you're going to get. You just get a little taste of it here with these guys this morning. Rick, for 55 years, a bass player with Gordon Lightfoot. Ed Ringwald spent 16 years with the band on steel guitar. They will be together, the Lightfoot Band, this Saturday at the Center in the Square. They join us this morning on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I am sure you have been hearing about the Split the Pot lottery. I'm positive you have, because we've been talking about it a lot on the station. The jackpot now, brace yourself, more than $1.4 million. That means the payout is over $700,000, and that payout grows with every ticket purchased. Our friends at the Split the Pot lottery have launched a lottery that supports 68 hospitals across this province, including those here in the region of Waterloo and Wellington County. And that gives Ontarians multiple chances to win cash prizes. Troy Murray is the Director of Philanthropy at the Grand River Hospital Foundation, joins me in studio. Good morning, Troy.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you in studio. We saw each other at the hockey 911 game just a few weeks ago, police versus fire, a fun afternoon. But this, I mean, when you hear $1.4 million, $700,000 plus in the payout today, how does that number sound to you?
Sounds pretty awesome to me. It's pretty cool. As you mentioned, the 911 hockey was, supporting local around the Pet CT and the Scotland's Yard. This is pretty amazing to see the impact it makes across Ontario and the 68 hospitals, as you mentioned.
Right. So how do these funds benefit Grand River Hospital?
Yeah, so recently we were able to use the funds raised through Split the Pot to areas that are most urgent needs. Most recently, we funded vital signs monitors for the emergency room. So as you can imagine, for vital signs, it's how's your heart rate doing, your blood pressure, that kind of thing. And those things, you can't take it for granted. So being able to fund those machines so that we can accurately tell how people are doing in all areas of the hospital are super important.
And this is a good reminder that these are the sorts of things that must be fundraised for.
Absolutely. So everything in the hospital except for staff and the lights, it's fundraised through the foundation. So this is a fun way to be able to give back and have a chance to win while you're doing it.
If I remember correctly, we were able to make the call last year to a winner right here in this community from the Split the Pot lottery.
You're right. Yeah, no, it's pretty cool to see someone close to home win. But as you said, it's folks from all across Ontario that are able to participate and allocate their funds to the hospital of their choice. But, selfishly, it'd be cool to see someone from this area that's chosen to give back to the Grand River Hospital Foundation to win again.
That's the cool thing about this, too. It's a good reminder. I mean, we can get pretty excited at the idea of winning $700,000 plus, and the jackpot's going to grow with every ticket sold. But, of course, we are benefiting these 68 hospitals across the province. So how can people get involved, Troy?
Yeah, so the easy one would be to go to www.splitthepot.ca and buy your tickets today. So you mentioned the jackpot right now is estimated to be over $1.4 million. The first or fourth early bird deadline is tonight. So if you buy your tickets now, you have a chance to win. And if you buy your tickets before next week's early bird deadline, you have a chance to win $1,000 a day for every day in December.
That'll help buy a few Christmas gifts.
You think?
The other thing about it is if you win an early bird prize, your numbers remain active. Your ticket's still good for the overall jackpot too.
You're right.
Okay. So early bird, the next early bird deadline is tonight. And then any purchase by a week from today, November the 20th, the last early bird deadline gets you entered into that chance for $1,000 a day in December.
That's right, Mike.
Okay. www.splitthepot.ca.
Correct.
Okay. We got the. I was thinking, is it Split the Pot Lottery? This is the Split the Pot Lottery. Splitthepot.ca. And when do ticket packages close? When do we stop selling?
I think you have some time even into December.
Okay.
But get your tickets now to increase your chances of winning.
What are the price points?
You can start as little as $20, and it just gets exponential from there in terms of how many tickets you get for, I think, upwards of $100 per package, and you get tons of tickets for that. So increase your chances and spend a little bit more.
And you know what I'm thinking? Like we talked about $1,000 a day would really help with Christmas gifts, right? But what a great idea. You're supporting our hospitals and you're giving somebody a chance to win hundreds of thousands of dollars. Maybe you could gift a Split the Pot lottery ticket.
I would. We were just having that conversation with their family members, trying to figure out, do we do the typical gift exchange or Secret Santa, or why not give back and donate? And this is a fun way where you can win while doing so.
Absolutely. Okay, so reminder, that next early bird deadline is tonight. Get in on the Split the Pot lottery, a total of 55 chances to win if you get in before that deadline tonight. Splitthepot.ca is the website to visit. Troy Murray, Director of Philanthropy with the Grand River Hospital Foundation. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, I wonder what we might talk about during the open line hour that is about to begin. Noon till 1 every day on this show is the chance for you to have your say. Could be an issue going on in your neighborhood right now you want to share with us. Got something stuck in your craw? Get it off your chest and onto the air. We are here to listen and engage in conversation. But there are some things happening, aren't there? 2 encampment clearings happening in our communities right now as we speak. Dundas Street North in Cambridge. City of Cambridge began there yesterday. Heavy equipment moves in. The 4 residents who had been there moved out, and they're going to be clearing it, and that machinery and the dumpsters will stay for the next several days as the city clears out what it describes as a safety hazard. Same thing happening in Guelph as we speak. Most people who had been living in tents in St. George's Square have been moved along. Their belongings have been cleared away, and the city is reclaiming that space in a public square. And then, of course, we've got the principal at a high school in Ottawa who has apologized after a song meant to promote peace, sung in Arabic, was played during a Remembrance Day ceremony at his school on Monday. He didn't understand fully the undertones of the song, how it was perceived by many as anti-Israel, thus triggering, and the apology follows. Although, as I told you earlier today, a friend of mine who works on a talk radio station in another city in this province says being afraid of hearing a song in Arabic is just remarkably weak. Sorry. And I don't know if it's because the song was in Arabic that's the problem here. I think it's because of the theme of the song, beyond just the peace theme that the principal thought he was getting from it. Lots of stuff for us to discuss on the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, which begins right after this on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage out of sight, or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Well, in fact, we do encourage you to talk back. Forget the don't talk back part. This hour, you are encouraged to talk back. 519-570-2545. Star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. Thoughts on issues that we discussed on the show today? Something else that's just going on in your world that you would like to share? We are all ears. As I mentioned before that update from the 570 News Center, we've got a couple of encampments being cleared out as we speak. Dundas Street in Cambridge and right in the heart of Guelph's downtown at St. George's Square. Municipalities are getting aggressive, let's say, at reclaiming public space. I also shared with you during the Farwell Show 5 this morning about a principal at a high school in Ottawa who has apologized for playing an Arabic song about peace during a Remembrance Day ceremony. There was some pretty swift and furious backlash against the song played because it was described as inappropriate and hurtful to members of the Jewish community. The principal, in his apology, said the intention of the song was to foster a message of peace and remembrance, reflecting on the importance of unity and reconciliation. But he has come to realize that the song caused significant distress to some members of our school community. And as I've shared with you, a colleague of mine, does the same work in a different city, okay, pointed out on social media that he believes that being afraid of hearing a song in Arabic is just remarkably weak. And I could be way off on this. First of all, I don't think it's being afraid of hearing the song in Arabic. I think it's about the theme of the song and it being used as a protest song against Israel. But further, and this is where I could be on shakier ground, but I just wonder if that's the take on this particular song and how some members of the Jewish community said it triggered them. How is that any different than the name on the side of a school building or the name on a street sign or a statue being something that instills fear in an individual? I don't know. I could be way off on that. But it's an interesting talking point nonetheless. Emailing Paul to Mike at 570news.com writes, the educator that played the offending music did not understand how it could be anti-Semitic. Maybe this is an educator who really doesn't know how to educate, especially with what's going on in the world. That makes me wonder how we do treat such divisive and potentially explosive conversations today. There is an awful lot going on in the world, and that world is very much on our doorstep. How it is that we are navigating those conversations is, I think, something we continue to learn in real time. And then there was this little gem that I found yesterday while out walking Rosie the pandemic pup. We took full advantage of the beautiful day that it was. Cool for sure, but it's one of those days that's just about right, isn't it? You put on a light jacket and a sweater and off you go, and the sun is out and there's a crispness in the air. Absolutely loved it. And I hadn't seen this particular ad before, but I came across it in a bus shelter, and I've posted the picture if you'd like to look at it for yourself. Maybe you've seen it before, but you can see it at facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show. And the poster is entitled Scoot with Care. And it's about those little electric scooters that we have, the orange Neuron scooters, which by all accounts have been far better, an experiment, if you will, than the previous Lime scooters that we had. Those ones did not work well at all, but we seem to have learned a little bit when it comes to those orange Neuron scooters that we've had around the region. And this particular advertisement reminds us how to scoot with care. For example, thou shalt not operate said electric scooter while intoxicated. You should not ride the scooter with another person on the back of it. It's for one person, not two. I've seen two people on the scooters before. You should have your helmet on when you're riding the scooter. And you should be off the sidewalk and in the appropriate bike lane or lane on the road. You should not be on the... So just think about that. Don't be drunk. Don't ride tandem. Make sure you wear a helmet and don't ride on the sidewalk. I think this is important and educational. That's the whole idea. That's why the region has these posters up, I presume. As I said, I took a picture of it because I had not seen such an educational advertisement before. But it made me think about something that's kind of been on my mind. And I actually saw this earlier in my walk yesterday. Some guy, bless his heart, like super talented, had a motor. And by that, I mean gasoline powered. You could hear it and you could see the little tank he had on the crossbar on the bicycle. But he had put a gasoline powered motor onto his bicycle. We have all kinds of vehicles now, be they these scooters, be they these e-bikes, e-scooters, the ones, I don't know how to describe the ones that look like actual motorcycles now, whatever they are. We have a variety of ways of getting around with battery-powered motors on these, I'm calling them vehicles. And I've started to think, just because there are so many of them and they whip around in so many places and they move at a pretty good clip, right? If it's not powered by human energy, if you're not pedaling it or pushing it or something, do you think we ought to somehow regulate and or license the use of these things? Because they're all over the roads. They're used, again, they move at a pretty high speed. And what? You just, if you can afford to buy it or you rent it from Neuron, you just scoot all over the place with these things. I'm starting to wonder, with so many of them, if it's not powered by you, the human, should we maybe not regulate somehow and require licensing for somebody to operate one? Just a thought that I had. Lord knows, we've got enough going on trying to enforce speed limits, trying to enforce parking in school zones, etc. But something that occurred to me when I saw the Scoot with Care ad in a bus shelter yesterday. Some of the things on my mind, whatever is on yours, this is the time to get it off your mind and onto the air. It's the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. Sorry, I know I disappeared there for a moment. Almost let the entire music bed play out. I was responding to a comment on our Facebook page. We can engage there or electronically if you like to send emails, like emailing Paul or anybody else. Mike at 570news.com or facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show, where I have posted that advertisement of scooting safe and suggested that I think that maybe these vehicles ought to be licensed somehow. If it is not human-powered, should it be regulated? And Kirk doesn't agree with that at all. He makes a great point that if we simply enforced the rules of our roads, the region would be flush with revenue because we would be catching all the speeders and all the people that, don't use their signals when they turn or take your pick, right? And he's absolutely not wrong about that. But I would come back to when it comes to these vehicles, be they the two-wheeled Neuron Orange scooters or the bicycles that have e-assist or are motorized, they're motorized, electric motorized, or the scooters, the e-bikes that look like motorcycles, whatever. I think that if you license and or somehow regulate them, at least it reinforces to the operator the responsibility they have when they get on the road. That's my point in all of this. I get we're not going to catch everybody. We don't catch everybody now doing all kinds of different things. However, I think for most of us then, there is that reinforcement of the idea that there is, with great power comes great responsibility. I'll take you back to my new best friend, even though I've never met him, Chris Clydesdale, who delegated at Cambridge Council last week around its budget. And he said, listen, stop raising my taxes when you have untapped revenue available to you in the city.
Before you're reaching in my pocket for more, I suggest that you look at yourselves for what you can do more. I talked to my council member at one point last year about the fact that bylaw is not enforcing bylaws, okay? Last night and the night before, my wife and I walked around our neighborhood and I counted over 40 property and parking violations. From people parking within 1 meter of the person's laneway, from people parked over sidewalks, from people parked in bus stops, causing the bus to offload passengers on the street as opposed to in the bus stops, from people putting their garbage out before 7 o'clock the night before and removing their garbage bins before 7 o'clock on the day of garbage. If you're looking for cash cows, look at the people that aren't behaving properly. You have the means and you have the ability to tax them through their own actions. It's reasonable, it's appropriate, and you've already got that authority.
There you go. Tax them through their own actions. Look, we create bylaws so that most of us understand, well, we all understand, and then most of us conform to the rules that we have set out in our various communities. That's why bylaws exist. We have rules of the road that we all understand, and most of us follow on a regular basis. We catch as many of the offenders as we can. Sadly, we will never catch them all. And I get the sense that there is an increasing level of frustration with those who do not follow the bylaws or the rules of the road or whatnot have you. It could just be my sense, but that's my sense. Kyle is on the phone with us on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon, Kyle.
Good afternoon. Well, when the music was going on for a while, I thought you were pooping. So I was going to say, your boss makes $1, you make a dime. That's why you poop on company time.
You would have heard Stairway to Heaven if I was pooping. Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make a quick comment on the licensing there. I don't think we should be licensing everything because I don't want to feel like George Costanza and Seinfeld when my wallet is about the size of a hamburger because I need a license for every little thing I do in this region or even Ontario. I mean, you need a license to go fishing. You need a license to drive a car, which I understand. Those are all licenses we need. But now I need a license to ride a bike. I need a license to get an e-scooter. Now I have to get insurance. Now I got to carry an insurance tag in my wallet as well. I mean, like, how much more licensing do we need before we just say enough is enough? And like that one guy emailed, just regulate it. Like, that's all you need to do because a license at the end of the day, sure, you might know how to drive a vehicle or whatever, but nobody follows it once they get their license. I mean, I can tell you how many times I fall on the road and people don't do what they say. I mean, you could take a G1 test right now, and how many people that have their license would actually pass it in today's world? So I don't think that we need all these licenses, Mike, but I do think we need more regulation. So thanks there, man.
All right, Kyle, appreciate the call. I think the Costanza analogy or example, while humorous, is weak just because your wallet would be too thick. But anyway, I accept your thoughts on the matter. And I will just further say, again, that I think the regulation and or licensing requirement reinforces the responsibility one has when getting onto said electric motor-powered vehicle. John, good afternoon.
Hey, how you doing, Mike?
Good, thank you.
Good. A couple of things I just wanted to touch on, if I could. One of them being the dog issue at Shepherd School. I'm just wondering, I hear from the school board, I hear from the parents of some of the students that are going there. What about the teachers' input? Like, what do they think about having these two great animals in their school? I don't hear if they're for or against.
Excellent question. I'll tell you what, we're going to be talking about that story on our show tomorrow morning at 10. I'll see if we can find out about the teachers' thoughts on this.
Oh, good, because I think it's a great idea. I mean, you're a dog owner, as am I, and they're just great. They're just great things and to have around, and I can see where they would be of help to the kids.
Agreed.
Yeah. Anyway, another question I had. Quite disturbed me this morning on the morning show when I was driving here to the shop, that they were talking about people living paycheck to paycheck. Excuse me, please. And the comment was that there's 50% of Canadians, or at least Ontarians, that are living paycheck to paycheck. I found that to be really, really a very high number. I mean, I'm coming along the expressway, as I said, coming up here to the shop, and the traffic volume is unbelievable. And I'm thinking, like, are all these, are half these people living paycheck to paycheck? I don't think so.
I'm not sure about that, John, but I appreciate the thought, and maybe we'll dive into it a little further after this commercial break I'm about to take. Just quickly on the dogs at Shepherd Public School, and as I said, we'll talk about it on the show tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. We've already scheduled that. But I believe that our public school board does whatever it wants. Full stop. The board does what it wants to do. Because I can't understand why you take the dogs out of the schools. This is the Mike Farwell Show, your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, 570 News Radio. To the call we got from John just moments ago. I love a keen set of ears listening to All News Mornings today with Christine Clark and Mark Douglas. Bankruptcy filings, personal bankruptcy filings, up 14% in the third quarter of this year. And yes, half of Canadians now living paycheck to paycheck. We'll continue talking about that. Shane's call is next, and there's a line for you right after this update from the 570 News Center. 12 o'clock Talkback Hour on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News. Let's get right back to the phones. The more opinions, the better. Shane has been waiting patiently. Good afternoon, Shane.
Good afternoon, Mike, and how are you this afternoon?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm not too bad for a cool Thursday afternoon. Just wanted to briefly touch on your comments about licensing these e-bikes and stuff.
Yes.
I am fully in agreement with doing something on that line. However, who's going to patrol it? Our bylaw officers are not doing their jobs as it is. I've had many problems with a neighbor of mine that just doesn't seem to know how to knock off the noise at 3 o'clock in the morning, and bylaw just says, you know what, when we can come in your house and hear it, we'll deal with it. So they're not going to deal with that. They're having a hard enough time dealing with parking issues. I actually just watched a guy at local Tim Hortons, not handicapped, parked in a handicapped spot in a regular spot, eating his sandwich and yelling at the guy that tried to get into the parking spot to go and find the parking spot somewhere else. Whatever happened, by the way, to our dealings with these crosswalks and the roundabouts, Mike? I just haven't heard anything about that in quite a very long time, and I'm going to hang up now and listen to your response. Have a good day.
Thanks, Shane. I appreciate it. Look, I wish I could help. I'm going to come back to what I've said a couple of times, and that is I feel as though We have come very close to the end of our tether with all of this. Our patience has worn incredibly thin. Our patience with one another, right? You ought not park in that handicapped spot. You ought not ride that e-scooter or electric motor-powered vehicle so recklessly. You ought not keep the noise going until 3 a.m. I get all of these things. I do believe, I really do, that our bylaw officers and departments are doing the best they can with the resources they have. Could we divert some more resources into bylaw so that we could collect more of these fines and generate revenue? Could we invest more or divert more resources into policing so they could be on every road everywhere? I don't have the answer to this. I think the answer is no, though. And I think even if we did, we're still going to see behaviors that frustrate us. You just simply can't catch all 700,000 people and the small percentage of them that are doing bad things. So I feel your frustration. I get it. And I wish I could help more. Clearly, you're not alone. And I think that's the best I can say about that. When it comes to crosswalks in roundabouts, the answer is no. I still, though, am led to believe that as we build new roundabouts, we are, or at least have given consideration to, changing where the crosswalk goes. So I guess the best thing to do is watch the crosswalks or watch the new roundabouts and see where the crosswalks go. Because, Shane, you know I'm with you on this. I've been saying it for years now. It was a poorly conceived idea to begin with, and there is no ding-dang way the crossing should be in the roundabout. The crossing should be, give it 20 meters. And I know, that means the person out there on foot has to walk an additional 20 meters to get to the safe crossing. Well, I don't know a better answer to it, because where they are right now, the crosswalks is a recipe for disaster. Grant, you are on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon.
Yeah, and you're not wrong about the comment that you made before break time, that they do what they want.
The school board, yeah, it does exactly what it wants. It just, I don't know any level of input or from where that input would have to come for our public school board to listen to a damn thing the community says.
I think if I had a child at that school that needed that dog, I'd bring the dog.
That's a good idea.
If you don't like it, well, then you change your ways.
I can get behind that kind of civil disobedience. Take a dog to school. I love it. Dogs are the best.
Especially when it helps these people. They help them out with their anxiety.
For sure they do.
I didn't know what they were until I Googled it. And it's like, my goodness, what is wrong with this board? I say we bring a person like Mike Tyson.
Okay.
I think they should.
Nobody needs to get punched in the face, Grant. It's okay.
I'm not saying that.
Well, that's what Mike Tyson said, though. He said everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
No, just bring these big dudes with their dogs, their fertility dogs.
Wait, whoa. Fertility dogs? You mean facility dogs? Let's not let's not mix our metaphors.
Yeah, bring these facility. And I think I know what you know. You kind of know what I mean. That
I know exactly what you mean. By the way, Mike Tyson had a tiger. I learned that watching The Hangover, just for the record. Who you got in the fight on Friday anyway? I was just reading about this in the paper this morning. I didn't know when the fight was. I've been hearing a few Jake Paul or Mike Tyson. Like, my heart says Mike Tyson all the way, because that Jake Paul's a punk. But Mike Tyson's also almost 60 years old. Anyway, moving aside from that, just to go back to the school board thing, and I don't want to give away too much tomorrow, but here's my hot take right now, okay? I understand what the school board is saying, that we've had these facility dogs, not fertility, facility dogs at Shepherd Public School for a number of years now, but none of the required data has been collected to allow us to determine if the program should continue. Fair point. But could I counter, sir, with in the absence of data, you don't know if the program was working, was or was not. You don't have that answer absent the data. Why don't you just come back and say, you know what? We need the data or this program will be ended. So let them then begin collecting the data instead of just removing the dogs. You see, you removed the dogs because you didn't want the dogs there. And that's not cool. It's just you may not have the data to support. Well, you also don't have the data to show you that it wasn't working. So put the dogs back in the ding-dang school. Andy, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Mike.
Hi.
Love your show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I had a few issues and maybe some resolvement to some issues.
Okay.
I think for speedsters, I think they should maybe bring back photo radar.
Oh, I thought you were going to say capital punishment.
No, but I live near Homer Watson, Pioneer area, but there's a lot of speedsters. I mean, I hear motorcycles and I also hear cars without mufflers on, and I know that, but they're very, very loud, and they've got to be doing, I know I shouldn't be talking miles an hour, but they've got to be doing at least 80 miles an hour. And it really should, I think photo radar would be a resolvement. As far as pedestrian ways, I totally agree with you with the not putting them near roundabouts. I think they should do a flashing light system way before that.
You betcha.
You know, just like behind Fairway Mall, where the pedestrian presses the button and all these lights flash. And it gives a warning to drivers that, hey, slow down or stop. And that's one area. Let's see, the other one is about bylaw. I totally agree with that caller that you had, but I think they should increase fines, give educational flyers, the city or the bylaw, in their mailboxes to people to say, hey, like, you can't do these things, because you got a lot of new people coming to Canada, and they might not know, what the bylaws are.
You know what? That's a good point. It's like the educational advertisement that's posted on our Facebook page today, facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show. Scoot with care. If you're putting ads in bus shelters, you can put some flyers in mailboxes too. Andy's on. Andy's bringing the solutions today to the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. And the Talkback Hour continuing means continuing hearing from you. Lisa is with us. Good afternoon, Lisa.
Hey, Mike. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am okay.
Good.
So this story about the facilitator dogs, I didn't hear the whole story, but I believe one of the things in the story was that the parents were not allowed to make a presentation. That's accurate?
No, there were a few parents that appeared at the meeting this week. They just didn't feel as though they were necessarily being heard.
Okay. So there's where I would say that, and I've read a little bit in other news that the parents are not really happy with the dogs being taken out. So that to me would suggest that there should be some data that would help the people make the right decision there. But I've heard a few stories to do with this school board that kind of struck me that there's a few people potentially that have a little bit too much value in their own power, and they don't think they need to listen to. And really, isn't that what they're there for? Aren't they supposed to be working for the students and the parents of the students? Isn't that basically what their job description is?
I would agree wholeheartedly with that, Lisa. Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that, because it seems to me that that's not really what they're doing in this case, but that's, everyone hears the story the way they want to hear it.
True.
Anyway, have a nice afternoon, Mike.
You too, Lisa. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. And again, we will be talking more about that story and the facility dogs from Shepherd Public School in Kitchener, which after 4 years were quietly and suddenly removed from the school. That'll be tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, right here on the show. Dawn is with us on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon, Dawn.
Good afternoon, Mike. I just wanted to kind of springboard off the comment the other gentleman was making that made a presentation to council about saying, listen, stop taxing us and taking it out of our pockets when you have the means to collect monies in other ways. And there's stories been around a long time about how government contracts are awarded to companies, and the amount of money that they're overbilled, double billed, is into the hundreds of millions of dollars. Yet whenever they find out that this is going on, nothing ever happens. Nobody's ever charged. No one goes to jail. Money isn't, demanded to be paid back. And, I think people are just getting a little tired of this laziness and, not following up with these issues and demanding our money back. They don't have any problem raising taxes, but they're too lazy to go after these people. They say it's just too much work.
Appreciate the call, Don. Look, I've said for many a year, the easiest money to spend is that which is not your own. I'm feeling the weight too, and that's why I've been kvetching about it so much lately. I'm feeling that same weight that you are of the increased costs to our living. And when you have that, and then you get councils that are talking about 8, 10, 12% tax increases, it's incredibly frustrating. And then you see things up. Thanks for the reminder, Don. I had the opportunity last night, let me tell you, to drive past this new, what'd they call it? Cycling link, the Willow Cycle Link in Waterloo. Now, you've heard me complain about it before because I said there's no need for this cycling link literally steps away from the Spurline Trail. Like, the Spurline Trail is so well used. And we're talking 10, 15 meters away. Waterloo rips up this little green space, takes out trees to put in a cycling link when the Spurline Trail is in and of itself a cycling link. Like, it just made no sense. I was by last night, and guess what I saw? I saw the Spurline Trail, as it always is, filled with people walking and on bicycle. Do you know what the cycling link was filled with? Nothing. A whole lot of nothing. And the city will tell you, yeah, but that was just $60,000. That was just 0.1% of your tax bill. Well, guess what? It was 0.1% of my tax bill that did not have to be spent. Did not have to be. But the $60,000 wasn't yours. You didn't work hard to earn it, did you? I don't know. I get frustrated. And Dawn just reminded me of one of the reasons I get frustrated. We're going to rip out existing separated bike lanes on University Avenue, on King Street, and on Herb Street so that we can put in new separated bike lanes. Why the hell do we spend the money on the other ones then? Like, what did we spend that money for? We spent it not 5 years ago so we could rip it out and do it again? Come on with your coming on here. This is the Mike Farwell Show, your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, 570 News Radio. You just had to go there, didn't you, Sean? You had to go there. All right. Hey, listen. I'm game. I'll go there. Sean tweets me or X's me at Farwell_WR. I know where we can relocate funds for bylaw. The money we use for leaf clearing. I just saw it in action. 2 dump trucks, a machine to pile the leaves, one to pick them up, a street cleaner, and a guy on the sidewalk. Sean, buddy, let me tell you, I saw this too. I witnessed it with my own eyes a couple of years ago, and that's when I got all fired up about it. Climate emergency, my ass. Pardon my française, but you want to talk climate emergency in this community, and then you send all of that out to clean up the leaves, which, by the way, it is better for the environment to leave on your lawn. Make it make sense to me. Furthermore, though, what Sean gets into here is the amount of personnel. Look, I love you, city workers. I love you. Thank you for your contributions to keeping our community safer and cleaner and operating effectively. Our budgets, here's what I'm really curious about. You know how when we talk about the regional budget and the 12% proposed tax increase, which they're going to get down to 8%. Don't worry about it. It's going to be great. But we always talk about the increase and then, oh, wait, but that doesn't include the police budget. Well, okay, so can you please give us the number? And because we always talk about the regional budget that way, why don't we ever talk about the city's budget except for the fire department? Like, why don't we talk about the regional budget except for EMS, paramedic services? Why does police always get separated? And furthermore, to Sean's point, why don't we ever talk about municipal budgets before salaries? Because let me tell you how much of our tax money goes to just paying the damn salaries. It will curl your hair, even mine. All right. I got to leave you on that note. Sean got me fired up. I don't know what I'm going to do with my energy for the rest of the day. But you can spend yours with Rob Snow, 1 until 3, immediately following this update from the 570 News Center. Devin Robertson, our guy on the other side of the glass. My name's Mike Farwell. Bye for now.